It's October 5th, 2020. This is Roqe. When we talk about cultural ambassadors in the Middle Eastern diaspora, there are a few names that quite naturally fall to the top of the list. And today's guest on Roqe would be one of them. Maz Jobrani is simply the best-known Iranian-American comedian and actor in the world. He's made a name for his brilliant wit and observations as a stand-up comedian on stages around the world, and also as an actor in various big-name TV shows and films. But now, with a polarizing president and a U.S. election looming, Maz is also taking a serious stand for what he believes in. A feature conversation with Maz Jobrani coming up. This is Conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode number 50 of Roqe. امیدوار هستم که خوب باشین. Hi Shaya. Oh, Shaya and Reza. Captain Reza is here too.
That's right. Hello.
And Ponta. What is going on? No fabulous Keon. It's a Monday. She doesn't usually come on a... Hi Shaya, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
چه خبر?
کیفم کوکه.
Yes, your cave is still cook
yes.
from last Thursday. Well, I guess Reza walked in and Ponta's there, but we don't have we only have one microphone for you guys.
Yes,
it wasn't planned.
No.
Well, nice to see you guys. I'm excited to have Maz coming up on this show, our 50th program of Roqe. He's made no secret of standing up for causes and political ideas that he's believed in over the years, and he's doing that exactly right now, especially in social media, where he has made his feelings known about President Trump and Trump's policies. I suspect this will be a more serious but engaging chat as I ask Maz about his feelings and take away from all that's happening in America these days.
Yes. Can I say something?
Yes, you can say something, Shaya.
Yeah, actually, it's the 50th episode of Roqe.
Yes.
And I wanted to say that I'm very grateful for being in Roqe and inspired by your book, because in your book, when you write any chapter, you prepare the short
list. A little short list, yes.
So I prefer the short list.
Okay, you prepared a short list about why
I'm grateful for being.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yes.
All right. Well, who was that for? For everyone to hear now? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
That's why Captain Reza is next to you? Is this an intervention? What's going on here?
Sort of.
Right,
No. I'm here mostly for Maz, actually.
Oh, okay. You're a Maz fan. I thought you were here for the show. You're here just because you're a fan of Maz. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay. This is my list.
This is your short list.
Yeah.
All right.
The first one actually is working with professionals,
All right.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. The second one is that in these uncertain days, this show keeps me busy, so I don't have time to think about committed suicide or
That's great, Shaya.
Yeah,
so basically, you're grateful for this show because it's keeping your mind off. This is quite a short list.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
The other one actually is that I have to.
Is this number 3?
This is number 3.
How much longer will this list take? This is number 4. No, that was just 2.
This is number 3.
Okay.
No, the short is.
The short list is only 4.
Yes,
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 3 is that I got to know more about my heritage.
Oh yeah, I feel that way too.
Yes, and the number 4,
and that's a big thing to say because you are very, I think you're very culturally plugged in to your heritage. So the fact that on Roqe you're learning more about it, it means a lot to me. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. And also number 4, thank you.
Yeah.
And number 4 is that your Persian is getting better.
Oh, you're inspired by how much better my Farsi is.
Yes.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Same as my English is getting better.
Your English is fantastic. Yeah, it's but I almost don't want your English to get too much better because everybody's so in love with you. They write these letters like, "Oh, Shaya, he's so charming," and I worry that when your English gets a lot better, you'll lose some of your seductive ways.
So I stop right now.
That's a very fine short list, Shaya. We did launch this program 50 episodes ago. And our first episode back in April, I wanted to mention, was dedicated to the victims and families of those who lost their lives on Flight 752 as it was shot down by the Iranian regime back in January. On that first episode, as you guys will remember, Hamid Ismailian called for justice. He, of course, lost his wife and daughter in that shooting. Well, the effort to realize some justice continues, and I wanted to mention that today. Today, 176 family members of the victims of Flight PS 752 held rallies in 9 cities around the world. A few of them in Canada and elsewhere, Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, but also in Washington, D.C., in London, and in Frankfurt, Germany. Their demands include disclosure of all information that the coalition of 5 countries have about this crime, and a call on the coalition of 5 countries, these were the 5 countries that were involved, including, of course, Canada, to immediately devise and implement a roadmap to justice. So this struggle continues. I believe there's actually another rally in Toronto on Thursday, if you're listening in the Toronto area, and we're going to have a couple of those who lost loved ones on that flight on the show in the coming episodes to catch up on the effort to find justice in that horrific event and its aftermath. In the meantime, you can go to ps752justice.com, ps752justice.com for some information, more information and details. Let's not let the memory of those folks and that injustice, that horrific event, be forgotten. Speaking of the Iranian government and ongoing outrageous actions that are getting taken, it was only a couple of shows ago, you guys, that I talked about how we have a growing audience in the thousands in Iran that are listening to the show and streaming the show from Iran. Well, one of the main places they've been coming to for Roqe in Iran is SoundCloud.
Yes.
So the Instagram, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Those are the ones because, of course, Spotify and YouTube are very difficult to get in Iran. We just found out this morning, Rohan, one of the guys on our team, says that as of yesterday in Iran, SoundCloud is basically now blocked. They say filtered. So unfortunately, that means a lot of our audience in Iran for now, who's been listening to us on SoundCloud, are not going to be able to do so. I guess if you are listening to us in Iran right now, you're on another platform, or tell your other folks that Instagram's still an option, or Telegram, or I suppose iTunes. Some folks listen on iTunes. But do you know anything more about this, Reza, this blockage?
Yeah, so people got to use proxies, certain proxies. They call it filter shekan, that they can use that. It's like a downloadable software on their mobile phones or computer, where then they be able to bypass that blockage and access our content on SoundCloud,
right,
YouTube, or whatever. But for people who can and have that access to that proxy, they might want to encourage others to do the same.
But do we have any information about why SoundCloud was suddenly filtered now?
I don't know. No, I don't have any new information as to why, but
not a surprise.
But not a surprise. No,
right.
It was only a matter of time, right?
Wow.
YouTube is and everything else.
Yeah, it's not the first time that SoundCloud got filtered in Iran. As a musician, it's disaster. It's nightmare working with Persian.
Well, actually, we're lucky because we're on various platforms, but there are some folks doing podcasts or musicians who are only putting their music on SoundCloud that suddenly have no platform in Iran.
Yes.
So it's happened before, and then what? They re-up it? It comes back?
Yes.
Okay.
I think in 2017 it got filtered, and then after a few months it
Right.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the majority of our audience is not in Iran. It's listening. They're on YouTube or on Spotify, etc. Mostly in North America and Germany and Australia. But that is that's a real shame, and I hope that folks will continue to find ways to access us in Iran, and obviously on those other platforms. We hear from you guys on Instagram and Telegram and iTunes sometimes, but that's a real blow for us to not have that SoundCloud avenue to Iran for now. Let me turn this around and say something positive. A shout out to a guy named Sasha Shaybani and talent2hire.com. Talent2hire.com. So Sasha is a guy who came to Canada from Iran in the 1990s. He came as a 25-year-old. He had completed his military service, had a love for music. In fact, I know Sasha as a musician who he's great on African drums, and he has a musical project called Bongo Planet that is full of amazing grooves. He apparently his dad was worked for Iran Air, and when Sasha was a little kid would bring home vinyl from the West, and so he grew up surrounded by music all around him and is a musician. But Sasha has also spent the last 20 years involved in technology staffing and recruiting. This is helping companies hire better people across Canada and the United States. He is now the managing director of Talent to Hire. Talent to Hire is a service for companies looking for full-time and contract workers, specifically in the fields of technology and IT. So if you are a business or a company trying to find roles, employees, staff, especially in technology or IT, Sasha and his team are going to help you make that happen. He's really one of the best at what he does. Talent2hire.com is where to find him. He's also someone who profoundly believes in supporting Iranian culture and our community in the diaspora. So thank you to Sasha for his support on this episode, and for talent2hire.com. That's the place. How about that?
Yeah.
You ready to? Should we go to Maz? We've got Maz. Oh,
yes,
you
yes.
have another short list?
No.
Oh,
Actually, I heard Bongo Planet, and I like it.
It's a cool project.
Yes.
He's been doing that for a while. He's a mainstay at a lot of drum circles and stuff too,
yes.
Sasha. But so Bongo Planet, but also Talent to Hire. That's his combo. All right, let's get Maz. Yeah, okay, we're ready. Well, to apply the overused phrase, my guest today needs little introduction, may just be appropriate, if a little cliche, when bringing this fella onto a program aimed at conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. He is the kid from Tehran who grew up in California and has become simply the best-known Iranian-American actor, comedian in the world. He is the greatest, the Persian Pink Panther, the shimmering Shah, the funny Ferdowsi, the acting Aziz. Maz Jobrani has shared the big screen with everyone from Nicole Kidman to Ice Cube. He's been a regular on shows like 24 and Superior Donuts. You've seen him on Curb Your Enthusiasm and ER. He has appeared as a guest everywhere from Stephen Colbert to The Tonight Show. But it is as a stand-up comedian that Maz has had a major impact on the world of entertainment and on the way Iranians are seen in the diaspora over the last 2 decades, wielding his mic and using his wit to undermine stereotypes and hypocrisy, and getting plenty of laughs along the way on stages all around the world. Maz has a book entitled I'm Not a Terrorist, but I've played one on TV. He has his own Netflix special called Immigrant, which debuted in 2017. He wrote and produced a feature movie called Jimmy Westwood, American Hero. And most recently, Maz has launched a series of Zoom performances in the time of COVID and a podcast over the last year called Back to School with Maz Jobrani. And he has also not been shy on social media lately as America, the country he has lived in for the last 40 years, careens towards Election Day. Right now, Maziar Jobrani joins me from Los Angeles, California today. Hello, sir.
Hello, thank you for that intro. There was a lot there. I like Shimmering Shaw. I like the Shimmering Shaw. That's a good one.
I worked for weeks on that, Shimmering Shaw. You didn't like Funny Ferdowsi?
I like them all, but I'm just saying that these are like T-shirts, I guess you can do Funny Ferdowsi, but Shimmering Shaw, that's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt, my friend. That's as a stand-up comedian, when you're on the road, you take T-shirts with you and you sell them after the show, sign it, and people buy them, and you're always thinking like, what's my next shirt? Shimmering Shaw. And you get like a nice glittery Shaw there.
That's
I like
right.
that
That's right. You don't have to powder your forehead anymore. You're the Shimmering Shaw.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hey, man, thank you so much for doing this. This is the 50th episode of Roqe. It is such a pleasure to have you on as our special guest. I wanted to wait till number 50, and I already want to sign you up for number 100.
Well, that's we just started, and so that means your bar is low. All I did was answer your intro, and you already invited me to the next one.
The next one's 50 shows away. Don't worry. It's not heavy lifting for you. You know, it's funny, Maz, because I think I reflexively do all this research and prep. So I reread your book and I watched your Netflix special again, and I was going over all these old interviews with you. And then I thought, there is so much in the news that we have to deal with that I would be remiss if I did not start there when it comes to you. So let's start with the news, because you've not been shy about giving your opinion of President Trump in recent weeks. And even since the news came out that he has COVID, you've tweeted, I hope he self-isolates for another 10 years, and he should take a break from tweeting and get some rest. We can catch up on November 3rd. So tell me about being this politically open and unapologetically clear on social media these days.
Well, first of all, let me be clear in that I would never wish like death on anybody. So I would never say, oh, I hope he dies or something. You know, my thought is that he will recover. I want to be clear to not come across as somebody who would ever wish that upon somebody. But last week, when the news came out of his of him having gotten coronavirus, I think a lot of Twitter lit up simply because of the position he's taken on it and downplaying it. And there's hundreds of thousands of people dying, and so a lot of people were saying it's karma. Some people were saying, it was. I thought you said it was supposed to go away in April. I thought you said it is what it is. I mean, he said a lot of stuff that comes across unsympathetic. And so I think people take some relief. It's almost like you have to do it. It's almost therapeutic to get on Twitter and just express yourself. And so, you know, it's an interesting thing. Twitter is like opening up your window every once in a while and just screaming out the window like, you know, he's a fraud. And then you just feel better. You're like, oh, that felt good. And I think one of the things I've always done, whether it was here or with previous administrations, I mean, look, when we went to war with Iraq, I was against the war with Iraq because I found it to be hypocritical that the terrorists had been, Saudis and Egyptians, and Osama bin Laden was in Afghanistan, and yet we go into Iraq and you see the hypocrisy that's going on, and that they're using it as an excuse to go into another country. And so I just think as a performer, I've always been a fan of comedians or musicians or artists who say something with their art. So whether it's George Carlin or Richard Pryor, or more currently the Daily Show guys, Jon Stewart, Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, D.L. Hughley, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of people who try to have some social and political commentary with their material. And so if I can do that, I do that. And so I've always done that.
But wait a second. This is it is something of an evolution for you. I seeing you get this political. I know you. I've seen you over the years. We've known each other. I've seen you. I remember when I was writing those books in L.A. and I'd come to the Comedy Store and you'd be doing stuff there. I saw you a couple of years ago when I was living in New York at Caroline's a couple of nights. And you've always been somewhat nuanced. You kind of go out of your way. Like I even remember you would tell Trump jokes, but you would sort of go, look, I know there's some of you Iranians in the audience who like Trump, and you'd kind of massage it a little bit. You're not doing that anymore. This feels like you've made a decision that you've got to speak out. Would that be true?
Well, there's a difference because social media is very different. Social media, I think you can go a little more hardcore because you're going to get attacked by the people that are going to attack you, and you're going to get retweets by the people who like it.
Right.
And social media, some of it is hard to be funny in every tweet. And so when I'm watching, for example, the debates and they're screaming at each other, when he says a complete falsehood or he doesn't denounce white supremacy or whatever it is, sometimes you go, he just didn't denounce white supremacy. Again, you're screaming, right?
Right.
You don't have to have a punchline. I try to have punchlines when I can on social media, but you don't have to have them. Whereas in stand-up, you still have to have punchlines. You're still dealing with a live audience. And the truth is, when Trump first became president, I actually tried for a minute. I tried to step back because Trump has been in the American public eye for over 30 years, maybe close to 40 years, right? And it's funny because I have some followers on Instagram that are Iranian from other parts of the world, and sometimes they'll say, "But he's better for Iran," and I just go, "Listen, I don't even want to argue with you, but the truth is, this guy's been lying for 30, 40 years. At first as a real estate developer, then as a celebrity, then whatever." So I've never believed this human being as a person, and then you look at his past, and there's a lot of stuff there that is just deplorable in many ways, not to use Hillary's term for the people that follow him, but to use it for him. And then I say, I don't trust this guy. So some Iranians have bought into his promise that somehow he's going to get rid of the mullahs. Right. I have no idea what that strategy is. There is no strategy there. I guarantee you, if somebody said you can build a Trump Tower in Tehran, he would shake hands with the mullahs and be like, great. So at first, when he won the presidency, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I remember telling my kids the day after the elections, I said, listen, that's the beauty of America. We have a peaceful transition of power, so we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. And by that following week, he was tweeting about Alec Baldwin's performance as him on SNL. Right. And I'm going, this guy's out of his mind. And then he implemented the travel ban, which was very personal to me, because that affected a lot of Iranians coming to America, and a lot of Iranian students coming to America, a lot of Iranian family members coming to America. So I went to the protests, actually.
Yeah, I felt like it was the travel ban that really did it. I remember you going on Stephen Colbert, this is in 2017, in early 2017, and talking about the fact that you'd gone to the airport protests. And I remember thinking, oh, that's interesting. Maz, I don't know, I always thinking of him as a guy who's going to the protests. But that was that a snapping point for you where you kind of went, all right.
Jian, no, in 2003, I went to the protests against the war in Iraq. The good thing that I can say without doubt here is that I've always been very much pro-peace. I've always been very much someone who wants to help others. I've always been and to the point of like, I'll get involved. Because I have friends right now, it's actually heartbreaking. I have friends of mine who were a little more like that. And for whatever reason, with the conspiracy theories online and the QAnon stuff and all this other stuff, they've turned far to the right. They've decided to hate California's government. The democratically majority government of California is running California. They complain about that. Then they take their complaint and they go one step further and they just criticize everything coming from the left. And they've gone to the right. And for me, I don't recognize those people. But to them, I want to say, I'm the guy. I was doing crap like this years ago. Like I've always been very left-leaning. I've always been very much about this. So like I said, I'd been to other protests before. And it's just that probably it's more visible now. It's actually what I think is interesting to me is the Iranian community embraced me early on because I was the first one of us doing this and becoming better known in America. And so they came, they saw, and they would laugh at some of the stuff. And I don't think they even heard that I was doing some jokes making fun of at the time, right? Let's say of President Bush, or maybe President Bush did not have as much of a cultish following as Trump does now. And Bush maybe hadn't even talked as much about his game plan with Iran. I mean, the game plan with the Bush administration turns out that they actually, I've read that they wanted to go into Iran as well and do a regime change, which, let's go back again, I do not support the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think they are oppressive. I think that they are abominable. They're horrible violators of human rights, et cetera, et cetera. But I also don't want a war with Iran because I know that 500,000, 1 million, maybe more innocent Iranians will die. So all of that to say that I've always had politics on my mind. I've always done jokes that touch on it.
And by the way, you were a PhD student in poli-sci, right?
I dropped out right away, so I'm not going to take credit for being
okay. It still counts. It's been an interest of yours, is what I mean.
Yeah, I did a quarter at UCLA and got out. But all that to say, look, I've always wanted to be on the side that I feel is the right side. And so whether, again, let's go to like gay rights, right? Like within our community, I'm sure there's a lot of people in our community that are very closed-minded when it comes to homosexuality. I've always been pro-gay rights. other ethnicities. Like this Black Lives Matter thing. There's a lot of people in our community who go, no, let them deal with it. Why don't they pull themselves up by the bootstraps? There's Iranians that say that. So I go, no, man. I go, these people, the civil rights movement is what allowed you to come here. You came here, and I don't know about other Iranians. I came here in the late 70s, and quickly when the hostage crisis happened, we were getting beaten up for the sins of the Iranian government, who we had left.
But Maz, how much pushback are you getting? Because the thing is, you're bigger than, I mean, you're beloved by our diaspora, and by people in Iran, I'm sure, but certainly by Iranians and Middle Eastern people around the world. You're kind of, whether you like it or not, you're kind of an ambassador, for the Iranian diaspora, and so I would assume that everybody just loves you. You never get any pushback. But I've also learned that there are no untouchables in our community, and I mean, we had Firuz and Nadiri on the show, a few weeks ago. And, this is a guy who was, you can't sort of get any higher in terms of the respect and esteem that he has in our global community. But since he's become political, or given his opinion about the current Trump administration, usually quite eloquently, he's getting a lot of pushback, and he's personally, as he said on the show anyway, quite heartbroken about this. I think because it's new for him. He hasn't been a performer for 20 years, 30 years. He's been a guy who worked at NASA, and all of a sudden there's these people going, how dare you? Do you get that kind of pushback, and how do you deal with it?
I was heartbroken at first because I was saying, what's going on? Like, why are these people attacking me? And then I realized that there's just going to be this in any group. I mean, you see within the Black community in America, they have their Candace Owens, who's on the far right, who's just putting out a lot of crap. And then you're going to have people on the other side. I'm sure the Latino community has it. I mean, so we have it. We all have it. And we end up, I've heard other people from other communities say, oh my God, like you've heard like a Black comedian might say, oh, Black people are the worst because if they don't like you, they'll come after you. And then you get a Mexican. Mexicans are the worst. So similarly with us, I realize within our community, there's going to be people that don't agree with me. And now, again, I think under Trump, they've become more emboldened. I think that the social media has made it so that they can reach you a lot easier. There was a time when the social media access wasn't there, so they might hate you, but they can't get a hold of you.
Right.
So now we just see it more. So I put it to a couple things. Number one, I go, sometimes they're just bots, because what'll happen is, for me, especially on Twitter, it'll go in waves. Like nothing will come for 6 months. Then all of a sudden I'll wake up one day and I'll see all of these tweets in Farsi on my Twitter. And the truth is my Farsi reading isn't that good. It's like second grade level. So I'll start reading it and it'll be like, Maziar is, and then like the next thing is like, Pushkish. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. So I'll just mute it. I'll be like, because I used to block them, but then I realized that they get the pleasure of knowing you blocked them. So I just mute it so it's no longer on my page.
Right.
And then there's once in a while, I've had a few people now where the guys like decided to come after me because he goes, Maz Jobrani, did an event for NIAC. Now, for those who probably everyone knows NIAC, National Iranian American Council, they came under fire because they were supporters of the Iran nuclear deal. They've been supporters of diplomacy with Iran. So there was the other side that wanted regime change, came after them and said, oh, you guys are definitely in the pockets of the mullahs, blah, blah, blah. I've never seen any proof of that. However, early on, like in the early 2000s, NIAC was basically the NAACP of Iranians. They were after September 11th, when there was discrimination against Iranians, where some websites, a website called monster.com that told people that if you have under your skills, if you've speaks Farsi, you need to take that off because there's no way we can get you work if you write that. And there was a lot of other discriminatory things happening against Iranians. And NIAC stepped up and was running campaigns to try and help against discrimination of Iranians in America. So I did events with them and I would support them because, like any organization, whether it's NIAC or PAYA, or I've done like charity events for Iranian cancer organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Right. I always get up and I go, yes, of course, this is good for the community. Well, once these guys started attacking Nyack, and Nyack had asked me to be an advisory board member, I said, sure. I mean, I didn't really do much. Just, I was like, okay. But then early on in the Trump administration, people were attacking me on Twitter going, you're Nyack, Nyack is this, Nyack is that. And I was like, look, I'm not here to defend Nyack because it's not an organization that I am at the front of. So I actually contacted them and said, guys, let's take me off the advisory board because I want to be able to, if I'm going to just get in an argument with somebody over 240 characters at a time, I want to be able to say, this is my opinion. If you have a problem with Nyack, go talk to Nyack.
Right.
This is my opinion. And so there was a couple of times where these guys came after me and like they were like, you were a member of Nyack, this and that. I go, listen, dude, first of all, look up the website. I'm not on the advisory board. I'm me. Now come at me. What's your problem with me? And I've gone back and forth with these people. And this one guy was like, it's funny because in the end.
Why do you go back and forth with them? Does it get anywhere?
No, I usually don't.
Right.
But if the guy's got like a good number of followers and seems like a legit dude,
right, and
then his followers start coming at me, I just go after the guy. It's like going after the king, the queen bee. Right. And I go in there and I go, what do you got? Like, come at me. And I go, I am for the freedom of the people of Iran. I'm for those people of Iran getting their freedoms somehow in a peaceful way if possible. This and that. And what's funny is to these people that criticize Firuz Nadiri, these people that criticize me, anybody else, our ultimate goals are the same. Like, we all want freedom for the people of Iran.
Of course.
We all want like the Islamic Republic to dissipate and have a democratic government, a secular government come on. I mean, that's what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, it breaks my heart. I've done shows in the Middle East. I've done shows in all the countries, Beirut, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, you name it. I've done shows all over the Middle East these past 10 to 15 years. And I've never had a chance to go to Iran to do shows because of the government that's there, because of the fact that they are, we both know, they're very, they're big violators of political prisoners. And I'm afraid that if I land, they would say, oh, whatever, here's a clip of you saying something. And there you go, throw you in jail. So it breaks my heart that we can't go back. But because we differ in opinions on how to get there is where the argument comes out. And so, like I said, sometimes I take it to these people. And as a matter of fact, one guy that was coming at me recently, I was like, dude, if you keep making up lies about me, like, I'm going to come after you. And then he's like, I'm not lying. I did the research. And he like pulled up a picture of my name on Nyack advisory board from like 4 or 5 years ago. I go to here's the link, go to the website, like, do your research. And it was a little back and forth. And at the end, it was like, okay, well, we both want the same thing. So I'll talk to you later. Good luck or whatever.
Okay,
I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, listen, dude, I'm sure the truth is, I'm sure you're a good guy. Like, some guy got in the middle of it, was like, this guy's been fighting for Iranian human rights. I go, great, I'm on board. Let's get it. Right. But why do you got to come attacking me? Like, that's the problem.
Here's the thing. It's I find that when it comes to you, maybe there's a couple of there's maybe two categories. One is that you're letting us down. The other is stay in your lane. Let me take them one at a time. So the first one would be, it doesn't hurt because we get some of this on this show. Just listen. Forget what I'm saying. Even just which guest we book. It'll be like, well, you're bringing Milani. I know what you guys are up to then. And it's like, what are we up to? We're interviewing people, right? But I think that it's not the trolls or the attackers, the requisite stuff on social media that hurts. It's the person saying, Maz, you're letting us down. Maz, you are, we believed in you and you're letting us down. Do you know what I mean? Is that the part?
Absolutely.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, listen, there's one thing with that which is funny, because you realize that unlike you, who went back and read the book, who looked at the videos, who went on my social media, did your research, and now we're talking, most people know you from your last tweet. That's it. And they don't even go back to look at the previous tweet to see where you stand. Now, sometimes, and maybe one day when I become wiser, I'll just see the wisdom and keeping my mouth shut and just not putting this stuff out in social media. But I feel that part of it for me is, like, for example, right now I'm on a big push to get people to go out and vote. I'm on a big push to get people to volunteer if they can to do phone banking, because I really feel that Trump has ruined this country and the world, and a Biden administration would do better. Some people go, "You really think so?" I go, "Yeah, I really think so. Just by the humanity that comes with it." Now, we can get into the specifics later, but I feel like I need to put my voice out there, because my hope is that maybe there is someone who is young and doesn't know what to do, or isn't sure if they should phone bank or if they should volunteer or whatever, and they see it and they go, "Oh, you know what? It doesn't seem hard. I'll do it too." Because the other side is going to be the guy coming at me going like, "You let us down. Trump's better for Iran and blah 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 blah." And I'm going. First of all, I go, these people are not looking at where I've stood my whole life. The fact that people are shocked that I am left-leaning in my views, it shows me that people haven't been paying attention to what I've been saying these past 20 some odd years. And also, you can't expect, people have a full day. You can't expect everyone to go in and look at all your old videos and read your old tweets, right? So for example, I'll just give you a very simple example of how you can end up in hot waters for thinking you're doing the right thing and going, wait a minute, what do I got to do here? So a couple of years ago, when there was floods in Iran, this BBC reporter reached out to me, and first of all, whenever anything happens anywhere in the world, these people from different backgrounds reach out. So like currently, there's the Azerbaijanis and the Turks are bombing into Armenia. So I get a lot of my Armenian fans sending me messages, "Maz, you got to talk about this." And I'm like, I haven't seen anything about it because I've just been swamped with the election stuff. Right. But yes, Armenians, I'm on your side. Let's get the right thing going. So a few years ago, the floods happened, and this reporter reaches out and he's like, "Hey, listen, this flood's happening." Oh, I put out a tweet because I wanted to. I'm sorry, an Instagram post, just wanting to acknowledge, because let's face it, a lot of times when things happen in Iran, the media here doesn't necessarily cover it, until later. So I was just wanting to acknowledge, let my fans know that, hey, this is happening. Thoughts and prayers with the people of Iran or whatever. And then this guy gets in touch and goes, "Hey, by the way, if you want a charity to donate through, here's a charity." And he was a BBC reporter, and I'd met him. I knew him. I go, "Okay, great." So then I go back and I go, "Oh, by the way, here's a charity to donate through." Well, people start bombarding me with messages. No, the Iranian government has said they'll take any money that comes in. It's not going to the people. Then someone else is arguing with that person going, "No, this charity's legit." Then another person, "Maz, shame on you." And I'm like, I'm just trying to help people that got into the flood. So this becomes this big thing. I sort of got to the point where I know someone who's a counsel, like one of the lawyers for Facebook. She got in touch with me and said, Facebook needs to do an assessment of this organization you've posted, because we want to make sure that the money's not going to the wrong place. I mean, it got that high. Like Facebook was getting ready to get involved. And at the end, I just said, you know what? Let me reword this. And I just went back and I did a little post. I said, "Hey guys, here's an organization I donated to. If you guys want to donate, do it. If not, find another organization. If not, you don't even need to." Yeah. I got through this like 24 hours of drama, 48 hours, whatever it was. I felt good. I was like, okay, great. I'm telling you, Jian, like a week later or something, like a few days later, I start getting different messages from people going, "You don't care about the people of Iran? Why don't you post about the floods?" And I'm like, dude, it's 3 posts back. Just look 3 posts back. So
and you're not, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not Amnesty International. You're just one guy who's trying to help out where you can. But and I should clarify, I mean, one needs to at this point, that I'm guessing that you're not saying people shouldn't have different political views or people shouldn't have it's just the attacking, it's the saying, "How dare you?" It's the "You've let us down." It's all of that. I mean, as Banafsheh Akhlaqi said on this show last month or a couple months ago, she said, democracy is actually just about sitting down and listening to each other's opinions, and those opinions can differ, right? Our community, some of the dysfunction seems that we're not allowed to have differing opinions. It turns into, "I hate you, I'm going to protest against you, I'm going to bomb you, I'm going to, et cetera, et cetera." And the other thing that I'm guessing that you get is the stay in your lane. And I was thinking about this you probably know Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, the great comedian. And he recently sort of came out as very much against Trump and started, posting some very funny but aggressive kind of tweets and stuff in Instagram posts. And there was a lot of talk that, this guy's going to lose his, because of a lot of his audience is Middle America or something. This is the cardinal sin. He stepped out of his lane of comedy and he's getting political. And to be fair, it is a choice. When Max Amini was on our show last month, I said to him, do you take political sides? Do you give your opinion? He says, absolutely not. My job is to be a funny guy. I want to bring positivity. I stay away from all that. So I'm guessing you get some people going, dude, just be the comedian. We don't need to hear your political opinion, right?
Yeah, so let me address two things. As you said, you're talking about the different opinions and people saying, I'm disappointed. I think part of what we also run into is our people for over 40 years now have felt like they have gotten the short end of the stick because this government that took over, that spread us out through the world, that for 40 years, there's people still going, I'm going to go back one day we're going back, one day we know. Oh my, and also, by the way, then we see the atrocities that government does. Right. Then that creates deeper passions in people, so that when an issue comes up that we disagree on, it's not like, okay, you know what? It's not like we're sitting there going like, well, we disagree on whether there should be higher taxes or lower taxes. Okay, that's like something, people get upset about, but nobody goes like, I will kill you if you raise it 3%, my taxes. Right. People go, oh, come on, this administration is raising the taxes again. That's why I don't like these guys. It's like fighting for our lives. So when we have someone who has, a different opinion than us, and especially if they have some sort of platform, I think we get passionate and we go, right. Because we all, again, we've gotten the short end of the stick.
It's a traumatized community. Yeah, there's no question.
PTSD. And there's people with different experiences. Someone was explaining to me one time that there's some people now that are young Iranians who have left Iran or younger, but they really suffered under the hands of the Islamic Republic. And so when I step up and go, guys, let's find a diplomatic solution to get maybe try and find a way to free Iran a little bit slowly. Those people might be passionate and go, no, there's no negotiating with these guys. These guys are the scum of the earth. I suffered under them. And because you are supporting us talking to them, then you are in their pockets. And therefore you are, there's a passion there. So yeah. I get it. I totally get it. And I just always go back to saying, like, no matter what happens in any kind of argument, I always say, I am for the people of Iran. I'm for the people of America. I'm for the people. I think a comedian's job is to punch up, make fun of the leadership if they do something hypocritical. So whenever I can, I do that. And then sometimes those people will come up to me and go, well, why are you making fun of Abdul Qasem Ghosami, the interior minister of Iran? I go, because I don't know who that is, and nobody knows who that is. You guys might. I don't know. My fans don't know. My fans are not just Iranians. My fans are a wider fan base.
Right.
So I put all that aside. But by the way, again, if these same people go and look at my social media, they'll see that anytime somebody contacts me and says, hey, listen, we're doing a campaign, free Nasreen Sotoudeh, I believe is the way you pronounce her last name, or a campaign to free somebody from prison in Iran, or a campaign against that execution of the wrestler, I'm always like front and center. Yes, let's go. Hashtag, you want me to send it to Khamenei? I'll send it to Khamenei. I don't care. I'm there with you. So let's put all that aside to say that I feel I'm on the side of the people and freedom for the people. Now, the stay in your lane really gets under my skin, because when these people go, stick to comedy, you don't know, you're an idiot, you don't know. I go, well, then you know what? You stick to accounting or whatever the hell it is that you do. We all, no matter what you do, have an opinion. And by the way, if you don't have an opinion, good for you. But most of us have opinions. Most of us are somewhat, depending on how deep we want to dive, we have certain levels of astuteness to our political analysis. I personally feel for an average person that I have a pretty good knowledge on politics, but I'm also very interested in politics, so I read a lot about it. I talk to a lot of political commentators, analysts. Some are right, some are wrong, And I am, I'm also willing to say when I'm wrong. But it really bothers me because, listen, here's the thing that happened. It was interesting because leading up to Trump, and he was talking anti-Muslim rhetoric, he was talking anti-immigrant rhetoric, all of that stuff. And I thought that as a community, we would be aligned as opposing him.
Yeah.
But it was quickly shown to me that there's a lot of Iranians. First of all, there's a lot of well-off, wealthy Iranians who thought, oh, this tax thing is good for me, so I'm going to stick with that.
Done.
Then there's a lot of Iranians who go, oh, he's going to get rid of the mullahs. Okay, that's another reason. Then there's a lot of Jewish Iranians who said, oh, he's going to do stuff for Israel. So there's a lot of little things that started building up.
There's people who don't like the JCPOA who say, I mean, somebody wrote on my Facebook, when we had Homer Shah on the show, I don't like her. And I said, why? And because she supports Biden, and Biden is with the regime. Not I mean, so it was like, well, he is, but so we got all of that, yeah.
And also, listen. Here's my answer to my Iranian brothers and sisters is coronavirus should show us that there's no one issue that should be the only issue. For some people, this is it. Like getting rid of the mullahs is it. And I go, first of all, let's step back and realize that Trump has been in power now for almost 4 years. He hasn't done crap. All he's done is impose further sanctions on Iran, which we all know the people of Iran suffer. I just read an article recently talking about how the Revolutionary Guards are the IRGC, I guess, is basically like getting around those sanctions by finding ways to do contraband importing, exporting with neighboring countries. If these guys, if the people running the government are criminals, they're going to continue to find ways to make money, and the people that are suffering are the people of Iran. So the sanctions have been more crippling on the people of Iran. The travel ban breaks my heart because there was a time, at least these students in Iran, who we all know are some very smart human beings who have ambitions and desires, back in Iran, they're getting smacked in the head and telling them you can't do this, you can't do that. They used to at least be able to come to America and study and then find a future for themselves. Now they can't even come here, and it breaks my heart. And also as an American, I go, where they're going? They're going to Canada, they're going to Europe. So we're losing out on these people. So you can do an analysis of all this stuff and go, this guy's been here for 4 years telling you he's going to do something. Nothing's really happened. Almost took us to war, brought us on the brink of war when he killed Soleimani, who, by the way, I don't like Soleimani. Soleimani was a bad person, but there felt like there was no thought. That's what scares me. There's no further thought.
What's the plan? It's almost, right. Yeah.
What's the plan? There is no plan. So let's take that. But let's now go back to what I said with the coronavirus. There's issues beyond Iran. There is this idea that this administration does not believe in science, and so he contradicted science. He even said in an interview with Bob Woodward that I know it's a horrible thing, but I don't want people to panic, so I'm not going to say anything. Then he doesn't wear masks, then he gets the coronavirus. I mean, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that have died. And it's amazing to me how quickly people can excuse it and go, no, those numbers are doctored and this and that. This is an age of misinformation. But how many things do I have to come to you with, from coronavirus to racial inequality to fanning the flames of racial inequality to the Paris Climate Accords, there's so many other issues that this guy has led us in the wrong direction in. And so what I try to do when I get into an argument with these people, and this is where, again, I know something about politics, I study it. So when you come and tell me, stay in your lane, I go, this is my lane. I want to talk about this stuff. So what I say to them as I go, look, let's just break it down to the basic Republican Democrat issues. How do you feel about abortion? How do you feel about gun rights? How do you feel about the environment? Let's talk about those three. Those are three big issues. Because I go, if you think that climate change is not real, we shouldn't do anything about it. If you feel that we should not have any restrictions on guns, and if you feel that women should not have the right to abortion, then I get you. You're right-leaning, fantastic. Those three things, I'm on the left on. And so I go, right there, we can say, at least I understand you.
Right.
And let's move forward. So there's more issues than, listen, Iran is an important issue, but there are more issues, because the question becomes, at what point are you willing to sacrifice your
The single issue voter thing, because it's not new and it's not unique to Iranians. I mean, abortion, for example, is a single issue for a lot of people in the States. It always has been, but that is more relevant, I feel, when you're dealing with what we traditionally in political science used to call the Tweedledee and Tweedledum. When you'd say, oh, the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. The Liberals and the Conservative parties in Canada are the same. So I'm going to pick my issue, and that's the issue that's going to make the... In this case, no one can make the argument that these two options are the same anymore, right? This is profoundly different. It's funny, I thought that I was asking you a question about your tweets, and then I get to all this other stuff. We've gone deep into this, so now you have to come back at some point so we can talk about all these other things that you've been up to. But I want to get to your podcast, and I love that you're doing it with, a lot of times Tehran is with you, because he's just the best, and you guys together are so great. I have to ask you about race and identity, because you talked about racial inequality and how big a deal that is right now, playing into this election, playing into the polity of what you live in the U.S. right now, if not globally. And it feels like we're back, Maz, into a time where we do have to talk about race. You have to talk about your race, being Iranian, almost out of necessity. We did an interview, you and I, back in 2009. We've done a few, but this one was like 2009. And I was asking you, I think it was the first time we'd done an interview, and I was asking you the obligatory questions about how you became a comedian, and how you got into making fun of race and playing off ethnicity and being Iranian. And you told the story of how you loved theater as a kid and you played Batman, and then you loved all the American things. But once you got to Hollywood, you were being cast as the terrorist. And then after 9/11, there was no way to escape your identity. And so you end up going into jokes about being Middle Eastern, and that was the natural and necessary evolution. It feels like we are in a heightened age of identity now and race consciousness. And ironically, I wonder if you feel like you have to be the Iranian guy again because of that.
I don't necessarily feel that I have to. As a matter of fact, under the coronavirus lockdown, a lot of the shows I've done a lot of Zoom shows.
Yes.
And most of those Zoom shows, the subjects have been just surviving under COVID in terms of, whether it's a joke about, I did a joke about how early on, every time they'd mention a symptom on television, I'd be like, I think I got that. Like, as soon as they would say, like, a sore throat may be a symptom, and I'd be like, I feel like, it was all about that. And it was like about, jogging in my neighborhood and trying to stay 6 feet apart from people and not insult them when I run to the other side, because that basically implies that they've got coronavirus. So a lot of the material now has been under that. Obviously, Iran, listen, dude, 2020 is so crazy. I pitched a TV show in the beginning of this year, and right around the time I pitched it, and it was based on my life. It was an Iranian man married to an Indian woman with mixed kids. The joke I used to say, I'm Iranian, my wife's Indian, our nanny's Guatemalan, our kids are confused. And so that was the joke. And so I wanted to do a Blackish, the TV show Blackish, but with my family. Right. That was kind of the best way to describe it. So
perfect.
We had a show that I thought was really good, and we had a production company. Warner Brothers was the production company, the studio. And they were excited about the script. They go, we love it. We can't wait. Someone's going to buy this. Well, we went out, and right when we went out was when we almost went to war with Iran in early 2020. And I think that probably had an effect on nobody buying it. I think nobody wanted to touch it. Because it was a good script. And so when they say no to you, they don't say no because X, Y, and Z. They just go no. And, it's a network. It's the ABC, NBC, CBS, all these guys. They probably thought, this is too hot. We're about to go to war with this country, and no, or it could have just been that they thought, oh, this sucks. But I honestly feel that plays a little bit of something in their minds to push it away. And what's interesting is it really was like the show wasn't about like, oh, this is what it's like being Iranian American. It had some of that, but it had a lot of like, this is what it's like being a modern day parent. There was a lot going on that I think people would have related to. I thought it would have been good. But what's interesting is back then, early January, February, I was doing some jokes about, oh my God, we almost went to war with Iran, this, that, the other, and how my American friends were calling me and going, are you okay? And me going, why? What happened? And them going, we just killed the general. And I'm like, he wasn't my uncle. And like, So there was jokes about that. Now what's interesting is jokes from January to now feel dated because we've gone through so much.
Yeah.
To the point where I'll tell you, Jian, I actually filmed a new special December of 2019 in Dubai.
Yeah.
So this is before the Iran, almost going to war with Iran. This is before the impeachment. This is before
Corona.
Black Lives Matter.
Before
this is
Corona.
before Corona, all that stuff. So when I saw that special, I go, oh my God, this feels dated already. I mean, it's not even a year ago. And so what I did to prepare the special, and hopefully it'll air soon, is I actually did like 2 or 3 minutes of material from my room in my home as like coronavirus material, just to tell people, look, I'm aware that the world has changed. Because the truth is, when it hit me was when Jerry Seinfeld's special came out shortly after the Corona lockdown, and there he was in a theater filled with people
are
telling
mad
jokes.
at him. Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah,
but I'm sitting there going, the jokes don't even really apply right now, because he's
Right.
like, oh, when you go out, this, that, and I'm like, this is so weird. So I was like, at least for my special, I want to acknowledge that. So in the beginning of it, it's just me in a room going, the world turned upside down. Here's some Corona jokes. And here's the special that I recorded before the world turned upside down. So at least gives some context. So all of that to say, I don't necessarily feel like I have to be the Iranian guy. And a lot of times when people describe me as like Iranian comedian, I go, no, I'm a comedian that happens to be Iranian American. And I've seen the value of going beyond my race, because that's why, like, for example, when the Black Lives Matter protests happened, I went down and protested. And the reason I protested, and I encouraged people of different backgrounds or people from minority groups or whatever to go out and protest, was because when the travel ban happened in 2017, I went to the airport, I protested, and I saw footage of people protesting in airports all over the country. And I thought, wow, this is great.
Yes.
The administration will realize that they were wrong and they will reverse their take on this travel ban. Well, a couple days later, maybe that night, I was listening to a radio station, and the guy came on and goes, even though there's been protests all over the country, polls show that a majority of Americans still support the travel ban because they feel like it makes America safer. And that's when it hit me. I go, wow, people are not going beyond the headline to do the research to realize that none of the countries on the travel ban have ever committed an act of terrorism in America, and that this is just an unjust thing that's keeping parents away from their kids who are now American citizens. It's keeping people away from medical attention that's needed. It's keeping people away from Syrian refugees who've spent 3 years being vetted and sold all of their furniture. And, so that's when I realized, I go, oh, you know what? When I used to see the Black Lives Matter protests on TV, I would think to myself, oh, okay, black people have that covered. They got it. I don't need to worry about it. They got it. But then I realized, wait a minute, when I needed those people to be with me, they weren't there.
Yeah.
So that's when I go, you know what, the next time there's protests, I'm going to be there. And so I was there. I went down and I protested, and I still support, these protests for police reform,
But, it's interesting when you talk about not just being Iranian, because first of all, this is one of the reasons why you are so respected and recognized, I think, by our community, is because there is a recognition that you've become a success, a star beyond just the community. Like there are non-Iranians who love you and come to your shows and buy your merch and whatever. But it's always been a push and pull with you. I remember we did an interview in 2014 and we talked about the fact that you wanted to stretch out beyond Iranian audiences. So you'd do a lot of jokes that are not just about being Middle Eastern and our people. You'd joke about your kids or the World Cup or whatever. And then you'd have a bunch of Iranians coming to you after the shows saying, hey, how come you're not doing more Iranian jokes? So you kind of can't win. Have Iranians come around to the fact that you can belong to the world yet, and every joke does not need to be about us?
Listen, it's a push and pull. Some people come late to the game. There's some people that are young that didn't even know I existed and are just discovering me. And especially now on Instagram, I get people messaging me from Iran going, can you put some Persian subtitles on your stand-up and this and that. And the truth is, I honestly tried to get someone to help with Persian subtitles on my specials, and people that I would get were either flaky or they couldn't figure it out, or it was like being translated the wrong way. I go, forget it. And then people go, well, you should actually just put the English subtitles so people can sometimes watch it and read it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, so, you are you. So I remember years ago, Peter Gabriel came out with an experimental album where I think he went, you would know this. Like I think it was with it was some African tribe or something. He went somewhere where it was just this. It was an experimental album, and I'd been a fan of Peter Gabriel's, and I go, oh, let me buy this album. And I listened to it.
Could have been the Passion of the Christ album, or or one of his world albums. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And I was listening. I would go, what is this? This is not what I thought it was going to be. This isn't Sledgehammer. Like, what's going on here? And so, and I'm sure some people listen to it and go, oh, I love this. So the point is, you as an artist are not a jukebox. You don't take requests. You talk about what's on your mind. And so what's on my mind is, and this has been pretty consistent. I came up with this a few years back and I've stuck with it. I'm talking about social issues, political issues, and my kids. And so a lot of the social and political issues had been stuff about being Middle Easterner, Middle Eastern in America, et cetera, et cetera. But now there's other social issues as well. And the kids stuff is like, it's international. You perform it anywhere and people get it. And so when people come up to me, sometimes they go, oh, you should do more material about Iranians and this and that. I go, listen, if it comes to me, yeah, I will. But I can't, I'm not taking requests, and I can't, maybe there's some people that are joke writers who could sit there and go, I need more jokes about this, this, and this. I'm not that person. I kind of I have to feel it. I have to experience it. I have to, that's why, again, maybe right now there's so many jokes about lockdown and COVID, because that's just what I'm living. That's my life. The beauty is when I do those shows on Zoom, or when I do a show, I did a show for a drive-in where people came with their cars, and I talk about, for example, I talk about the mask and just wear your goddamn masks. And I get upset and start screaming about wearing your masks. I think people kind of sympathize and they laugh because we're all going through it. So, like I said, as long as there's people laughing, then I'm not in some isolated world where I have, so. You know what I'm saying.
I want to get to your the podcast and what it's like to be the Zoom comedian before I let you go. But just parenthetically, because you mentioned the way you're not necessarily the Iranian comedian or the American comedian or whatever. I'm curious where you're at. I mean, I'll ask you this every 5 years, but because I find it's a lifelong journey and struggle. Where are you at on your own identity? Rereading your book. There was this part where you talk about the fact that it's always a revelation to me when you say that it wasn't until you returned to Iran in 1999 that you realized that you're actually not so Iranian. You're like this American. What am I doing here? But you had always felt that you weren't so American either. So again, you're falling into that spot that many of us have experienced, especially in the diaspora, of where exactly do we belong? Have you gotten any further finding where that sweet spot is?
No, I think that there's a lot of us that experience that. I'm guessing that as the world changes and as travel is easier. I mean, not now under coronavirus, but generally speaking, it's easier to get up and go somewhere, and there's opportunities elsewhere. I feel that there's a lot of migration. So there's probably a lot of people like us who have one foot in their community and one foot in another community. I just listened to Chris Rock being interviewed by Howard Stern. Yeah, and he was talking about going to a white school as a black kid and how Howard used to go to a black school as a white kid. Yeah. And it was actually very interesting that Chris Rock was saying that, because it made me think about my youth. And I had a handful of Iranian American friends growing up, but a lot of my friends were just white dudes, and the truth is there was some of my friends, I loved them, but I didn't relate as much to them because just the way they interacted with their parents and the culture and some of the, just different things. Like I remember one time my friend yelled at his mother when we were like 10 or 11 or 12. I forget what the age was, but she said something and he yelled back at her, and then she's like, "Oh, Jesse, you're too much," and she walked out of the room. And I was like, "That's it?" I go, "You don't get smacked? If I yelled at my mom, she'd be beating me with a hanger." I mean, it was like different cultures. And then you would go to like a mehmuni, where the parents would be sitting there listening to some like depressing music, or taking turns reciting poetry, and I was like, I'm not into this either. Like, I'd rather
right. But even in the sorry to cut you off, but even in the cultures of North America, it was confusing. We had Azita Ghanizada on the show last week, and talking about how she didn't feel like she always fit in America because she was Afghan, of course, Afghan American. And I was talking about how when I saw Do the Right Thing, the Spike Lee movie, I was like, oh yeah, I relate to these guys. This, and it was like, wait a minute, how is it that you relate to these, the black kids in Brooklyn, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I guess that doesn't make any sense. But wait a minute, why should I not relate to them any more than I don't relate to, the white kids in Thornhill that have been, in Ontario for generations and generations that I don't have as much in common with either, right? I mean, it's as Iranians, there's this expectation, especially the bourgeoisie, the upper class expectation that we fit in with the white people, somehow, which is just not true. It wasn't my experience, right? I mean, I faked it, or I tried to, and in a lot of cases, it's great, and a lot of my best friends are white people or whatever, but we're not the same people.
Absolutely. And also, I would say that, you just made me think of something. I'm sure there's some of those white kids that probably had, who knows, maybe their parents were Norwegian, and they had a weird experience when they were hanging out with their parents, and a different experience with the other kids. So there could be kids that we thought were different, and they weren't as different. I think that there's a lot of people I hear about, other people who come from other places and are here, and they say, I never felt American, and I never felt so-and-so. And so I think that there's a world of that now. And but the good news for performers and writers and others is, if you just talk about your experience, there are people from around the world that will share in your experience, So whether it's you're talking about your kids or your marriage or your parents or whatever, our experiences can be different from like you might not feel like a local when you're in Tehran, because they're going to look at you and be like, those jeans give you away. Like we don't wear those here. And vice versa. Like you might be here in the U.S., pulling something that your community would do, like, I don't know, whatever it is, filling your car up with your whole family and breaking rules and not wearing seatbelts or whatever. But end of the day, there are people that will relate to you, and so I think I think it's more common now. I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm not part of any community, because I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't part of a community.
Yeah, I hear
you know what I'm saying?
You mentioned that series that you were pitching, or that idea, which I think is brilliant. Yeah, I hope you hang on to it and bring it back. The Middle Eastern Blackish, or whatever the version of it that you were talking about. And you mentioned your wife. I've never asked you this, but I mean, your wife is amazing, super smart, fabulous. She's Indian American, South Asian, and I've never asked you, did you ever get any weirdness from the extended family about partnering with a non-Persian? Was that something that had become an issue in your family at all?
No, my mom was probably the only person who voiced anything about who she wanted me to marry, like a long time ago, like when I was in college or something. I mean, I think she might have talked about that and said, like, no, you should marry an Iranian. And I would always say, like, why? And she would say, because, it's the same culture and they speak our language. And what if we're at a party and we're telling jokes and they don't get it? And I'm like, really? You want me to marry someone so they get your jokes? Like, what are you talking about? So I remember, I specifically remember telling my mom, I said, I don't know. First of all, I said, I don't even know if I'm going to get married. And secondly, I said, I don't know who. I said, I might go, on safari and find someone from a tribe and marry them. I don't know, And the good news was with my wife that by the time my mom met my then girlfriend, now wife, it was a thing of like, oh wow, she was, like you said, she was a lawyer, and she was smart and beautiful, and and very, well spoken. So my mom just loved her right away and was like, oh, this is a good person. And I think that I've seen my mother's evolution in America from being someone who might have had some thoughts and beliefs that were a little more traditional to being more open-minded. Something as simple as years and years ago when my brother had gotten a tattoo of my grandfather. My grandfather had passed away, but he was, he was someone who was very important to us. And he was my mother's dad, and he was just this like salt of the earth, amazing person, just a kind heart, and really was a father figure to all of us. So my brother had decided to get a tattoo of my grandfather's face on his arm, and he was afraid to show it to my mom because in the Persian community, as you know, tattoos are like lat bazi, it's like you may as well just go straight to prison. And I remember I was like, listen, I'll help you reveal it to her. So we sat in the living room one day and we're talking. And I pulled up his sleeve and my mom saw it and she's like, oh, that's funny. I go, no, Mom, it's a tattoo. She's like, no, he just drew that. That's pretty cool. I go, no, it's a tattoo. And she got so upset, she got up and she walked out of the room. Oh. She was like, she couldn't handle it. Right. But that same woman has come around now a long, long way. And I see her being open-minded about a lot of things. And I think that's just part of where we live. I mean, it's just, this is the culture, people have, interracial marriage.
It's also the way it should be. We should evolve as humans. So that's a beautiful story. That's nice to hear. I would have started this. I know I only have a few minutes with you because you got to rush off to be Maz Jobrani, but I would have probably started this interview if there's too much Trump to talk about. So I'm glad I heard about all of that from you. But I would have probably started with this, with what it's like to be you as a performer in a time. I mean, the only Maz Jobrani I've known for the last 20 years is a guy who's always running around the world, doing gigs literally all over the world. I'm in Dubai next week. I'm in Saudi Arabia. I'm in Canada. And even though you've done a great job of being able to keep your home base in California, the epicenter, what's it been like for you to be someone who can't travel and to move your comedy online to your home?
It's been an interesting thing. First of all, I'm lucky that I am able to, not be touring, like you said, because that was my primary work, right? So I'm lucky that I, had money saved up to allow me to do that. But I'm not someone who can sit still and just like watch television. So I've gone through different phases. When it first happened, I thought, okay, all I'm going to do is just put out Instagram lives every day. And I started doing that. And it's funny because early on we were wearing gloves and it was like, sanitize all your groceries. So we had some dishwashing gloves, a purple dishwashing glove. So I decided to take that purple dishwashing glove and a karaoke mic that my daughter has, and I would use that. And I would call it the Purple Glove Show. So every day at like 4 p.m. my time, I would go on Instagram Live and do the Purple Glove Show, and I would sing and dance and then do some jokes and give my opinion for the day. And then I would have people would be giving comments on Instagram Live, and then I would like be cussing people out. It was fun. It was like, it was just 15, 20 minutes, but that quickly became too much because I'd be, out playing tennis with my kids or something and be like, I got to go do the Purple Glove Show. So that kind of went away. And then I started doing some live Zoom shows. I was trying to do a talk show called Maz in the House, which I'm still doing kind of sporadically. Thank God for the podcast, which allows me to bring on guests that are interesting. I've brought on recently this girl Yasaman Ansari, who's running for city council in Phoenix.
I saw that. It's great.
Yeah.
By the way, I should mention it's called the Back to School podcast, and it's inspired by your son. But it's the idea is that people come on and school you, teach you about what they're involved in. Is that the the device, right?
Yeah, the idea was that my kids kept asking me questions I didn't know the answers for. So rather than going to Google, I would just bring on the experts. So I've actually had Firuz Naderi on there. I've had I have a guy coming on named Frank Figluzzi, who is a former assistant director of the FBI counterterrorism. And I love that stuff. He was talking about all the threats of the white supremacists and why like Trump's taxes make him a possible a liability that the Russians could tap into, and or some other government could tap into, and there's just really interesting stuff. So for me, that's kind of kept me going. All that stuff's kept me going. The other thing I've been doing is, I've become the house everything. Like I've become the handyman. I've become the the tech support. Anytime a computer breaks down, I'm up there talking to the kids. Here you go, this is what you got to do. My wife, this is what you got to do. I've become like the dishwasher. I mean, I'm doing stuff. Then on top of that, because of the elections, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start volunteering. So I've been volunteering with organizations to encourage people to go out and vote. So I've been making phone calls, cold calling people.
Nice.
I've been doing texts where you answer questions to people. So I figured, all of that together. And meanwhile, I've got like 2 or 3 projects that I've been wanting to write that I've just been procrastinating the hell out of, because I'm like, well, I'm trying to save the world. I don't have time to write a script. Right. So somehow I've stayed busy, and it's been nice. I've been around my family, all this time.
Well, I was going to say, why can't you sit still? I mean, why couldn't you have made the decision? You've got some money put away. You've done very well, obviously. You're okay. So unlike a lot of people who'd be freaking out about this, you're doing it. So you could have said, you know what? I'm going to write this year off. I'm going to spend this time with my kids. I was actually curious why to see you doing all the stuff on Instagram and the podcasts and all that. Thinking, well, Maz should, the guy's worked hard. Why doesn't he just take some time off?
Well, no, I am doing what you just said. Like it's great because, first of all, the kids have school as well, and my wife's working, so everyone's in the house. It's like our house, I keep saying, has become my house doesn't feel like a family house anymore. It feels like a startup incubator. I feel like there's someone in every corner doing something. I'm like, did you program the thing for a venture capitalist? So I have been doing what you said, in that I've been, I've been enjoying it. I go out and play tennis with the kids every once in a while, maybe once a week at least. We go out and do that. We go for walks in the afternoon or early evening. Our neighbors have a social distancing gathering that they do every once in a while. So I have been doing that stuff, and that's what's been great. Actually, I was thinking about that because something as simple as, my son's school has had him doing his math test at home, and you're supposed to monitor it as a parent. So I was like, it's cool that I can be home. Usually on a Friday, Saturday, I'm not home, and my wife's got to juggle it all. But it's been great that I said, okay, I'll do that. So I get in there. What do you got? Let's do this. I monitor him. He does his thing. Or if there's been times, and if they've had certain questions or something with their schoolwork, or we've been watching every night. We'll watch. We have different series that we go through. We're currently going through the series Ugly Betty, which is all on Hulu. It's a great series. So watched a lot of stuff with the kids, showed them a bunch of, Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Trading Places.
And the kids are into it. There's no sense of like, Dad, when will you be leaving again? Like, are they not sick of you? Are they happy to have you around?
No, they seem to be into it. It's nice because like I feel for my wife sometimes, because she'll do the cooking and then the kitchen will be a mess, and I'm like, well, the least I can do is wash. So I go in there and I wash it. And
nice.
Between her and I, we've been able to spend, I think, with some good quality time with these guys. Obviously, look, throughout the course of a day, we're all busy. So there's times when we just want to be brain dead and just, turn on our own show and maybe watch a program or whatever, or get on our social media or whatever. But I'm trying as much as I can to be present. I saw the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which talks about, and that also
did that not scare the shit out of you?
Yeah, it just made me realize, look, I mean, it's easy. Just put the stupid thing away. And it's actually great. Like I was telling my wife, it's funny, just a few weeks ago, I guess some celebrities decided to do like Blackout Wednesday or something. We're not going to post on Instagram at all because of, I think it was because of Instagram's, Facebook had not agreed to stop fake political ads on their platform.
Right,
So all these
like
celebrities,
right, yeah.
so these celebrities were protesting. So I just happened to be going through Sacha Baron Cohen's page, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's Blackout Wednesday. So I posted it as well. I was like, yeah, people are joining Blackout Wednesday. I'm in. And then my wife was like, dude, it's like big celebrities. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I didn't know it was celebrities. I thought it was everybody, you know. But the truth is, as much as I felt like, you know, maybe I'm not like at the level that I'm doing something that like makes a difference. In all honesty, that day, not having to worry about putting anything on my stories, putting anything on my timeline, because as someone who is, you know, a performer, I've been told by people that are, you know, on my team, they've been saying like, you got to be present, you got to be out there. So that day, not having to put anything, I felt so good. I just didn't check Instagram. I was like, this is great. So more days like that, please.
Maybe some more internal blackout days on go out and play the soccer with the kids again. Man, it's always a pleasure. You are a gem, and I can't wait to catch up with you again. Big love to the family and to Tehran and to all the folks there in California who've been through so much in recent weeks and months. And I'm glad you sound in good spirits. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, brother. You take care of yourself, man.
Talk again soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Khudafis. Actor, comedian, cultural ambassador Maz Jobrani. Look for his new special he was talking about coming soon. We reached Maz in LA today. This is full time for Roqe. Remember, you can find us on various platforms: YouTube, Instagram, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Telegram. Special thanks to Sasha Shaybani and talenttohire.com for supporting this episode. If you are a company looking for employees in technology or IT anywhere in North America, Sasha is your guy. Talentforhire.com. Recruiting in technology and IT. Thanks again to all of our supporters. Roqemedia.com is where you can find all things Roqe, and where we now have a page where you can become a patron of Roqe. How about that? Roqemedia.com. Thanks to the whole Roqe team. See you Thursday. Mizun Bashin.